Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for Sea Fever. So what Sea Fever is essentially about is we center on this character named Siobhan. She is this marine biologist of sorts, and basically one day she gets the opportunity to basically go on board this maroon fishing trawler. She finds this crew there, but very quickly she starts to realize that there is some growing parasites in their water supply, and it, very rapidly is starting to infect everyone, so they have to try to do what they can to, try to fix this situation and, find what's causing this, and that's really all I'm going to say. And, try to get out there as safely as they can, and that's really all I'm going to say. So, Sea Fever, overall, similar to other films I reviewed, I really did not know that much going into this at all, but it also is actually similar to a film I reviewed a couple weeks ago, that being Tape, in that this is a film that I would have never watched had it not been for the fact that I heard there was going to be another virtual premiere for this movie. I figured, it worked out really well for Tape. I might as well do it again for this movie. So, I did the virtual premiere and things like that, which I don't really understand why they even did it, because it was coming on to VOD the next day anyway, but I figured, fuck it, I'll do it, why not? Only cost me like $5 or whatever, and that's how much it would cost me to rent the movie anyway, but whatever. I did it, I watched it, and actually this film I actually ended up enjoying. Sea Fever is a very thrilling and very relevant film going on right now. Maybe the most relevant film you'll watch right now in terms of, new releases and things like that, which we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast. And I definitely think that's one of the best things about this movie. I think really the entire cast here does definitely do a really solid job, but easily the big standout is Hermione Cornfield in this movie, who, she did a film last year called Rust Creek, which I really did like her, and I thought she did a really good job, despite me not really thinking much of that movie. I thought she was actually really solid, and once again here, I think she does a really good job as really the smartest person in this entire film. Siobhan is someone who, not only is she someone that I think is a lot more rational than the most of the people in this crew, and she has the most sense out of everyone, but she also is the most empathetic. She is very selfless in that way. She's very resourceful, but she's frequently shut down because of it, and I think Corfield just does a really good job of showing someone that is doing everything she can to keep her composure, but also is increasingly frustrated because her, logical reasoning is not really being communicated in the way that it should. And I thought overall she did a really great job in this movie, especially towards the third act. She had some really thrilling scenes, and I was just very impressed by her here. And I just really like what I've been seeing from her as an actress. I hope I get to see more of her, in future films very soon, because I think she's definitely a real talent for sure, and I hope more people start to utilize her more as an actress, because I just think she definitely has it in her, and I really did like what she ended up doing here. Now, as far as the rest of the cast goes, nobody really is on Corfield's level, but they definitely do a really good job. I mean, you have talent like Dougray Scott and Connie Nielsen, actors that we already know are really good, and they're really good in this movie for sure, and I was definitely pretty big fans of them. I liked what they ended up doing in this movie. But the other big standout, I would say, is Ardalan Esmaili. He plays this character, Omid, who sort of starts up this bond with Siobhan, and I thought he did a really good job. I was very impressed by him in this movie. I liked what he ended up doing here. Really, this entire cast, I thought, was very solid. I didn't really feel like there was anyone that wasn't really that great in this movie, and I was pretty much impressed by everyone here. But now we're going to get to the directing and the writing, which this is one of those films where I'm actually really glad that I watched it, because similar to Tape, this is from a director that I didn't really know that much about, and that being Neasa Hardiman, who I thought did a really good job directing this movie, mainly because of the way she portrays this situation. It feels very real in that way. Nothing about this feels Hollywoodized. If this situation were to happen, this is very much how it would be portrayed, and I think she does a really good job just showing the seriousness of this whole thing, and I really did like the way that she ended up doing that here. I thought her directing was very solid. It's one of those films where I was definitely very thrilled by what was going on, and I thought she definitely did a really good job directing it. And the writing as well, I think, is mostly really good. I think there's a lot of stuff that she has to say, and what's weird about this movie, of course, is if you guys can't tell, it's very similar to our current situation where you have these characters pretty much in this, pandemic of sorts. Well, it's not necessarily a pandemic for them, but they are in this very tricky situation where they are, amongst this body of water that is very much infected, and they don't really know how to contain this situation. And the way that these characters are acting, it felt eeringly similar, and to the point where it's honestly kind of scary to watch. There is a scene with Hermione Cornfield's character in this movie talking about how every single one of them needs to be quarantined, and I was like, did Hardiman know what was going to happen? Did she know just how weird the timing would be for this movie? It's kind of crazy to think about, but regardless of that, and how realistic it is, I do think this film is very well written, mainly because they do a really good job of getting you to see all of these characters' point of views. You have our main character, Siobhan, who, like I said, is very selfless. She feels that this is a situation where, they need to be selfless here. They need to not focus on themselves. They need to focus on how this is going to affect other people, and you can see where she's coming from there. But then you also see Connie, Nielsen, and Dougray Scott's point of view, where they feel that, no, this is something that is affecting them, and they have to do what they can so it's not affecting them. They have to do what they can to get out of this situation because they are the most panicked. And so I think they do a really good job with that overall. That's something that definitely did impress me with this movie, was their reactions to everything. And I think that's definitely very well handled. And what they end up doing with this Parasite as well was not at all the direction I thought they were going to. For a while, it kind of seems like this is going to be a monster movie of sorts, but there's a different reason for why this monster is doing what it's doing, why this thing is in the water. There's more of a reasoning for that than you would expect, and I really did end up liking that. There's actually a really good parallel with the monster and our main character, Siobhan, and it's something that I didn't really notice at first, but when they did the Q&A for this movie, the way that Corfield was, explaining her whole theory of what this movie's really about, I was like, yeah, I could totally buy into that. I think the movie has a lot to say about, just denying the rationality of certain people. And I think it has a lot to say about us being naive and ignorant as a society, and us not taking a situation, downplaying it, but also overplaying it. Siobhan is someone that perfectly is in the middle of that situation. She is someone that is trying to look at this in the most level-headed way possible, and I feel like in this situation, it's kind of a perfect movie to watch right now, because it's kind of a cautionary tale in that way. If you don't act a certain way, something like this could very much end up happening, and well, we know where we are right now, so I feel like this is actually a film that might be hard for some to watch right now, but similar to how people are rewatching Contagion and Outbreak, I think they should very much add Sea Fever in there, because I think there's a lot of things this film definitely does do really well. The one thing I will say about this film that does bring it down for me are the characters in this film. There just isn't a lot to them beyond this situation. One of them is married, and we hear about that throughout the movie. There's another guy who clearly likes Siobhan, and he's kind of having that get in the way of this situation and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, and Siobhan as a character is definitely very likable. I liked her a lot in this movie, but beyond her, there just isn't a lot to these characters. And I feel like despite the fact that the film is, I think, paced really well, and I'll get to that in the editing. I think that the pacing of this movie, I'll just say right now, it's actually paced very well. And I think that the 90 minutes, it goes by pretty quickly. I actually do think it's a disservice to the film, because I feel like we could have taken more time to get to know some of these characters before this situation escalates, before things start to go awry for these characters. And then I feel I just would have cared a little bit more of what they were going through, because really, I only ended up caring about Siobhan. I didn't really care about the other characters in this movie. They weren't that interesting to me. Siobhan was enough, though, for me to say, okay, I like this overall, because I agree with what Siobhan is saying. I want her to survive. I want her situation to, I want her rationale to end up being the one that they go with, and that was enough of a reason to stay invested in this movie. But also just the growing, the escalation of everything, I think is enough reason to stay invested. I think the story would have been even better if we would have had some more time to flesh out these characters, because just at the end of the day, I didn't really feel like I knew them all that well. So that is the one thing that does kind of bring this film down for me. The cinematography, though, is definitely really good. The film, you can definitely tell, is on the cheaper side, but it doesn't necessarily show. I think the look of the creature itself is definitely very distinct. It's one that's going to stick with you, and there are some scenes that actually were kind of terrifying. There's one scene especially involving what happens to one of the members of the crew, and it was pretty gruesome. I was not expecting the film to go there at all, but it really caught me off guard once it happened, and I thought it was very effective. So I did end up really liking the cinematography here. So yeah, there is really a lot to like about Sea Fever at the end of the day. I think it's got a really solid performance in Hermione Cornfield. I think there's some really great, I think the supporting cast is really good as well. I think what it has to say about people that are in this situation and the way you can draw parallels to our current situation as well, it's honestly kind of startlingly good in that way with just how real it portrays that situation. I think that the way the movie ends as well was very shocking to me. It did not at all go the way that I thought it would. It actually did a really good job of subverting what I thought the movie was going to end. It ended up subverting a certain cliche that a lot of these films can fall into, and that's something I really did appreciate. So again, like I said, if you just want a really good horror film right now that is honestly something that is very realistic and something that actually is going to make you think a lot and something that I think is a way to kind of cope with what's going on right now, I think Sea Fever is definitely a really good choice. It's not an amazing film. It's not something that I think you need to rush out and watch right away, but it is definitely a film that if you need 90 minutes, I think it does a really good job of occupying those 90 minutes, not really feeling like you wasted your time or anything. And overall, I think this is just a really solid film overall. So I'm definitely going to give Sea Fever overall a B-. For guys, in my review of Sea Fever, let me know what you guys saw this movie, all of your thoughts, and it will see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.